Okay, welcome to the video on databases. Again, I'm recording this in my office. There's a fan running in the background. It might be a little loud today compared to our online videos. I apologize for that, but there's not much I can do. Hopefully you'll be able to make out everything I need you to make out. So what I wanted to cover in class that we weren't able to cover yesterday was database concepts. I'm assuming that everybody has an idea of what a database is. What we're going to actually talk about today is some more of the details and the structure of it. We're going to get into the MySQL database, and we're going to talk a little bit about it and how it works, and hopefully you'll be able to integrate a lot of this into your projects. That being said, some of the projects I've taken a look at, some of the group project coming up, and of the new assignment. Both very involved. I mentioned this earlier before that you thought the first two assignments were involved. Well, this one's a little bit more involved. Assignment number 3, technically we can't even really get started on it this week. Even what I'm going to be covering in databases today is not going to give you enough to get started in there. Definitely if you read some of your book, it will definitely help you there, but we'll probably put that off starting till next week. The group project, though, what I'd like you to do is just, as I'm going through this, you may want to pause me right now and pull out your group project or get a copy of it, read through it, and as I'm talking today, kind of get a sense of how you're going to use some of the information I'm talking about into your group project. And we'll talk about the group project more in class, all the details, but just for today, just the details on what needs to be done, and really what we're going to be discussing here as the video goes on. So first of all, what I would like to do is talk about the structure of the database. Overall, it's a little difficult to explain, so I thought what I would use is a spreadsheet to kind of give you the idea of how a database works. So this database that you see here up on the screen, it just one moment. There. I'm just making sure that the full database or the full screen is in view. So this spreadsheet that I created, very simplistic table, using 3 column headings of user ID, first name and last name, and I brought your guys' names in here. The user ID is just numbers 1 through 15, very straightforward, no structuring there. And this allows me to have access to first names, last names, and then assign an ID. So we've seen this type of scenario before, and this is very much like a database, and we'll get into the databases in a few moments. But I can populate information. I have columns, I have rows, and I have fields that I can place information in, and I have the headings here that allow me to identify which column I'm speaking of. And in a table, we focus more on column name by column row. So right here, Vincent's last name is in C column, row number 12. We don't necessarily do that in a database. There's different ways of differentiating that, but that's how we would do it in the spreadsheet. So in this scenario, what I'm going to talk a little bit about is doing grades in different courses. So it kind of gives us a real life scenario of how we would utilize this. I'm going to talk about putting grades into, and I've got them marked down here, the CNET 2030 and the CNET 2040 course. So how do I enter marks, save marks, and display marks using a database when it comes to doing marks? So I thought it might be a best way to do it. So there is a certain way that I could do it. I could actually have your user IDs, your first names and last names all in this same table, and I could simply come here and I could just type in CNET 2030 and maybe assignment 1, and I could continue that, and oops, I could keep adding assignments and going on like this and keeping track that way. So that is a very acceptable way of doing things, but it does get a little complicated when you want to start breaking things down. So maybe I just want to show all of Josh's grades in the CNET 2030 course. But if I have the CNET 2030 assignments all along here, also the CNET 2040 going along here, I've got a lot of my eggs in one basket, so to speak. I've got a lot of information on this spreadsheet that makes it a little more difficult to filter through and to associate what I want, or to get the information that I want. And not only get the information I want, but how do I not show the other information that I don't want to show. So in that kind of concept, what we're going to talk about is how do we do this in a database. And in a database structure, what you would normally do is you would keep multiple tables of different types of data and then link those tables together. So for example, I've created other spreadsheets down here, and let's assume that these are other tables. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put in an ID. We'll put in 1, and let's go down, fill that series. So now I have a table here of the user IDs, very similar to this one, and they have a corresponding ID number here. So what I can do then, because I'm already in the CNET 2030, I'm just going to put assign 1, assignment 3, and there was final assignment, and then final mark. So this is all the information that I need in this table, and because I already have the ID number of the student, I don't need to put the first name and last name in again. There's no sense repeating data, and that's the key to this, is that if I'm going to put things in multiple tables, I don't need to keep repeating data over and over and get duplicates over and over. I need some sort of link from one table to the other that allows me to associate, but that's all that's needed. So in this case, let's just pick on someone here. Stephen Frizzle. I don't think I've picked on you enough lately. So let's go with Stephen. Stephen wrote or did his assignment 1, and Stephen's user ID is 6. So we come under here for assignment 1, and actually Stephen did very well in this assignment. So we give him a 95%. Okay. So this allows me to put numbers in and go along, or maybe I've just done the assignment 1s and I can come in here and start putting in values. 65, not good. Okay, so we throw some values in, and then we go back. Who did not so well? Oh, Leanna. Oh well. So with this this ability to separate the data but link it to each other makes it a really great system. But then if I want to update information, or I want to search for information, how do I go about doing that? How do I allow that to search through and to allow me to see that? So maybe what I want to do is say, show me all of Mark's current scores and assignment marks. So what it can do is it'll go here, it will look for Mark's name, see what his user ID is, and then it will scan the other tables looking for his user ID, and report back with all of the marks, and hopefully with the correct column headings over on top of it as well. So that is the concept of database. That's where we're going with this, and how we're able to be able to manipulate that information and add to it. Now here in a GUI it's pretty straightforward. I just find the cell and I click and I type the information in. In the online world, in the database world, although there are some interfaces, usually what you're doing is you're issuing commands to the to your MySQL server or SQL server to enter that information. So you're telling it to create a database, and inside the database to create tables, and inside those tables create columns and input this data, search for this data, update this file, update that. So I'm going to take you through a couple of those scenarios right now, just to show you basically how it works. And we're going to use Linux, and again I apologize to anyone who's using Windows right at the moment. Basically the scenario is not going to change a lot. You'll just have to go out to a DOS prompt and go into the SQL, so it's really not a huge difference here. So I'm just going to connect to my home server, and basically from this point what I need to do is I just need to connect to my MySQL, and from Linux it's basically just typing in the command. I already have all the commands pre-typed. It'll make it a lot easier and a lot faster than typing everything. So the first command I'm going to type in here is MySQL. I'm telling it to connect to host, localhost, because the MySQL services is running on this server. If it's a remote server, I can actually put the IP address or the URL and everything that I need here. The username will be root for the connection that I'm connecting to my MySQL. When you installed MySQL, it asked for an administrator username and password. Chances are it was root, but if you did change it, that's where it is. And then the dash P just tells it whenever you're going to log in, prompt me for the username. Okay, so we type in this command dash localhost dash root for the user, dash P, and we hit enter. Prompts us for our root password, and now we are connected to the MySQL monitor. So this is just MySQL running, and it gives me an interface for me to type in commands. So this allows me to execute remote or local commands, so I can query the database, I can create files, folders where tables and databases and fields from here. You can do all this, eventually I'll show you, you can do all this from PHP as well. You can have PHP execute the MySQL commands, and that's where we're going with all this, to be able to use PHP to execute MySQL and save things to databases and such. Also, I'm going to show you in a future video how you can do a lot of this in the web interface that's called phpMyAdmin. It's quite easy to install and gives you a graphical interface to be able to do a lot of these commands. But we're going to start with the command line so that you get to know it very well and understand the command structure. So once you're in, basically you can just start typing commands. You'll know when you look at any kind of online documentation or anything, they usually will do the command parts in uppercase, but it is not fully case sensitive. So you should be able to even just go like show databases and go from there. Now, one thing I want you to note is that semicolon at the end. In order for me to execute a command, I have to put a semicolon in the command in the end. Let me just show you. So if I say show databases, it gives me a list of the different databases that exist on this particular server. This is my home server, so I have a few different things that are running here, and I already do have a database called Gradebook that we're looking at here. I was going to delete it before I started this, but then I have to import all your names and everything again, so we'll just leave that one there. I'll show you how to create a new database though, and how to remove a database before we get started. But just back to that semicolon, if I was to do that without the semicolon, basically what it does is allows me to go to the next line and put in another command if I want. So one of the great things with MySQL is that it allows you to execute multiple commands, and all you need to do is put them on a new row. So this will just keep going down and down and down. When I get to the end of all of them, then basically what I want to do is put my semicolon. So if you do forget to put the semicolon in and you get to this next line, it's as simple as just put the semicolon in now and just hit enter and it'll execute that code. So just because it gets a little frustrating at first, you forget to put the semicolon in. That's all that we need there. So that's showing the databases. That shows what's there. If I want to create a new database, as it sounds, I just type in create database and I put the database name. So let's just call it Chris. Oh, there you go. Forgot my semicolon. Query OK, one row affected, and now I'll just do my show databases again, and I can see now I have that Chris database there. Okay. If I want to delete that database, maybe I have one that I need deleted, I just use the drop database command. One thing I will make note here and make warning, there is no undo for the drop command. Once I hit drop database, everything that was inside that database is gone, and there's no undo. You can't retrieve it, you can't bring it back. So unless it's been backed up somewhere, you're out of luck. Okay. So we can see that that's gone. Okay. So another couple commands that I'll just show you. This is another command you may use from time to time. Create database if not exists. Basically what that means is if I want to create that Chris one, again I can use that. And what it does is it first checks to make sure that there is no database with that name and then creates it. That can be used if I tried to create it with a new database and I had enough writes, I could possibly write over another database, or at least if I accidentally agreed to overwrite, it could do that. So that is definitely another one that we use. So where is our, I guess we want to look at the tables now. We talked about the database. We want to go in and see some of the data that might be stored in there. I have the gradebook, but I also have the CNET one as well that we're going to use. So let's go into that database, and to really just go into a database, you're just going to say use database. So use CNET, and it brings you in and shows you that it's changed to that database. So now that I'm in that database, I don't have to refer to the database anymore. Now I'm just going to refer to tables. So I can even just show tables. So I have one table currently in the CNET database. We're going to create more in a few moments. But very similar over here to my spreadsheet, I just have a students table with all that information in. And to see the information that's in there, what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the select command. We're going to go back and forth between the select command and other commands, but you get to know the select one very well. Here in this command, what we've said is select everything from the table students, and this will bring back everything that I need, or everything that's in that particular table. The reason I use stars, I want everything. I could say select first name, so the actual field name, and it would just show me the first names. But in this particular case, I want to see everything that's in there. So very similar to my spreadsheet table that I demonstrated earlier, has the ID number, first name, last name, all situated in there. Okay. If I want to add information like the in the spreadsheet, I can just go down to the very next one and type in other values if I need to add new students. That adds it there. I want to do something similar here. Oops, I guess I didn't copy that command. I'm going to insert into students, which is the table name, values 16, Chris Arsenault, or Chris for first name, Arsenault for second name, and note that we're going to talk about this a little bit more in a moment. Note that the 16 is just a number and it doesn't require quotes, but my first name is text. It requires quotes, single quotes, comma, and then single quote Arsenault. And that's the way that the table was designed, and I'll show you that design in a moment. But if there's something set as a text field, it has to be put in quotes. This field was actually set up just as an integer, so it only accepts numbers, so I don't actually have to put quotes around that to accept that. So I do this, it inserts that information into the table, and if I go back and select, I can see now that that information is part of that table. Okay, so all these hand commands are allowing to do from there. If I want to delete, here's an example of a delete. Delete from students, delete from students where the ID is equal to 16. So this gives a bit of a logic, kind of like your if statements or something like that. This gives the ability to send a command to the server that says delete from the students table where IDs are equal to 16. So if I hit enter, that'll delete there. I could actually put where ID is equal to 16. I think I can put a comma and say ID is equal to 12 and ID is equal to 11. So that would allow me to go in and delete multiple levels. Or that was the ID. I could even say where first name is equal to Chris. Would do the same thing. Okay. So it gives me the ability to search through, but I'm telling it what I need to do. I could say also delete delete star from students, which would clean out the database or the table altogether. So, I guess I got to put my quotes in there. No, I want to select star from students. Okay, so now that entry's gone. For adding more values, maybe I want to add more than one at a time, I can use a command that looks like this. Insert into students. Basically what then I say is what information I want to put in. So ID, first name and last name. If I didn't want to populate all of the fields, I could actually just put insert ID and first name and then put values and then put the information here. But that would leave the last name empty, so what you do is you put all three that you want to update and then a space values and then put the values that you want to add. You put a comma and then the next one can go in as well. So I put Lino in here and Rob in here as well. So that allows me to add those two at the same time. Okay. And put mine back in there too, so we're all in there. Okay, so that's basic, very basic, how to create a database. We had create database. We didn't create a table, but it's basically the same thing. Create table, and go from there. We're going to create a table in a moment for the other one, and I'll show you some extra information with that. But yeah, so that's there. So yeah, let's take a look at the table. So here's another command that we haven't looked at yet. That's called describe. So I'm going to use the describe, and I'm going to point to the table students, and it's going to give me some information on my table. One bit of important information that I need to see, and we talked about a little bit about this, is the field name and the type of field. And I mentioned earlier that the ID was an integer and the first name and last name were text. That's why I had to put quotes around. Some other information it's asking, null to set to no means that in this particular table it will not accept an entry if there's a null value. So if I actually did try to add just an ID and first name, last name is set up here as no to null, and I would get an error saying that you cannot do that, you need a value in there, so I'd have to add it. The next section here is primary key, so we'll talk about that, what a primary key is in a few moments, but it's defined here as well. And then just the default value of what you want when you first create the table, so just have it blank. You can actually pre-populate cells when you create the table so that they already have a value in them, and then change it later. And this extra is just, as it sounds, just a little extra if you want to add more information to your table. So that's how that's created. So in order to create a table from the line here, let me just copy this one over. Okay. This is a different format than we've talked about, but I did mention that if you want to execute one command per line, you're able to do that, and then just put a semicolon at the end. So this allows you to kind of visually see it a little easier. It makes it less visually awkward if it's completely spread out across the screen. But we have a command here, create table if not exists. So I'm using that if not exists to make sure that the CNET 2030 table doesn't already exist, which I know it doesn't. Then I open a bracket and I put in the name, ID, of the field that I want to create. So it's going to match the IDs the same as the other table. I'm going to say that this is an integer as well. So that's what this is here. Not null means that it cannot be null. And in this particular case, because I require these ID numbers to make sense of my entire database, I'm saying that I can't have a null value there. It has to have a value. All the other ones can have null value because I may not be doing all the marks at the exact same time, or maybe somebody doesn't submit an assignment and we leave it at null. I'm going to do that. So it just says not null, comma, and then goes on to the next one. So the next column is assignment 1. It's an integer, and I'm just going to put in null, which means allow for a null value. And I do the same thing for assignment 2, 3, final assignment, final mark. Then right at the end, I define my primary key. I just say the word primary key, and then in brackets, this ID. This is the one that I've defined. So yeah, so come down to the close bracket and semicolon. I hit enter and query OK. It does say 0 rows affected, but we still do have that. So let's say show tables. Okay, so now I have the students and the CNET 2030 in there. So let's do that again, because it was so fun. And while we're here, let's do the CNET 2040 program. We're just going to say the same amount of assignments, final assignment, final mark, primary key, all of that. We'll say that's CNET 2040. If there was maybe 4 assignments, whoops, we could go back and do that. I can even add rows to it later if need be, so we'll just leave it at that for now though. And now I have show tables. Now I have those there. Okay. So now that's showing the information. I can, as I mentioned before, using the select command, select star from students, semicolon, I get all that information. If I do select star from CNET 2030, I get empty because I haven't put anything in there yet. So let's add a value to that table, and we're going to use the insert command. So let's input this. This is going to show, as soon as that disappears, insert into CNET 2030. Then I open bracket. I'm going to put in the information that I want to input. In this particular case, I'm only going to input the mark for assignment 1. Okay, the table as it shows here visually shows assignment 1, assignment 2, assignment 3. I just want to put a value into the assignment 1. So let's well, I'll do my own here. So I put the ID number and assignment 1. This is basically telling the server that write information to this column and this column, and I want values of 16 added and 87 added. So 16 will be the ID number and 87 will be the assignment 1 number. So I execute that, and now I've got that information in there. So I can select star from there, and now I see that I have 87 in the assignment 1, assignment 2, 3, 4, and final. I have the null values that are set in there. Okay, so it's as easy as that. So I can keep adding marks. Now that particular command that I just executed was inserting new information into the table. So I'm inserting an ID in assignment 1. But what now if I want to add assignment 2's value? I'm not going to use the insert because I already have a row in there. If I inserted that, it's going to come up and say, well, no, you already have a row there with ID 16 and assignment 1. So what I need to do is I need to use what's called the update command. The update command, basically, just as it sounds, allows you to update records that you already have in the database. So I'm updating inside this table, and I'm going to set assignment 2 equal to 80, but I haven't told it on which line yet. So I'm going to say on the line where ID is equal to 16. So that will find mine in there. And that's really the only one that's in there anyway. But I do that, and now I can see that the 80 has been added to assignment 2. Okay? So it allows me to continue doing that and adding as need be. I can do the same idea to let's say to the 2040. And give a different mark this time. Ooh, I did good on that one. Okay. And I can do the update as well. So let's go over to CNET 2040 and update. Let's say I did well on that one too. CNET 2040 must be an easier course, or the instructor is just a pushover. So select everything from CNET 2040. Oops. 2030. So yeah, so I have some information in those tables now. So now that we've talked about that, what we want to do is we want to start getting into more focused questions to the server, so to speak. So I'm going to ask the server to give me certain bits of information depending on my needs. So let's take a look at this command. And let's see if we can decode it. Basically what it says here is select, and instead of star this time, what I'm saying is select first name, last name, and assignment 1, but they're from different tables. So in order to distinguish what information you want from each of the tables, you start with the table name, then you put a dot, and then the field that you want to get information from. So students dot first name, and if I want to do another bit of information, I can put a comma and say students dot last name, comma, and then the CNET 2030 assignment 1, and let's add one here, maybe CNET 2040 dot assignment 2. So that allows me to pick and choose which areas and which fields from which tables that I want. Then the next section says from, and now I have to tell it which tables that this is going to affect. So students, comma, CNET 2030, and now CNET 2040. And what I want to do is I want to very specifically look for an individual's marks. So I'm going to put in where the student's ID is equal to 16, which is mine. So that allows me to execute that code. So what it's done is it's gone to the students table. It's got the first name and last name from the students table. It's gone to the assignment 1, or the CNET 2030, and got the assignment 1, and it's gone to the CNET 2040 and got the assignment 2. So you can see the flexibility and the ability to logically decide where I'm going to get information from, how I'm going to display it, and bring it into the screen. So it takes a long time to really start understanding and getting a sense of these commands. It's, for me, it's even, I don't use them very often, so I need a huge refresher every time that I come in to do it. But I was trying to think of a scenario where I could explain how this is all working, and one scenario I thought, in a very layman's term, what a database is, and especially MySQL, it's like you're speaking to somebody in a different language, and you need to ask them to do particular things, but you have to use the exact right words in the right order in order for them to understand what you want them to do. And it's the exact same thing here in MySQL. You're going to issue MySQL programming language, basically, that tells the server how to do something. So I need to create a database, I need to create a table, I need you to add these fields, I need you to add this data, then later I need to ask you, well, can you show me what the values are under Chris's assignment 2 or something like that. So you got to have a good sense of how this all works in the framework. All of these commands that we're doing are called queries, and we're going to get into queries and query building and things like that in another class. But that's what these queries are these forms of commands are. They're queries. We're querying the database not only for information, but to do stuff for us, so creating something or changing or updating or some things like that. So the last command that I have up here just says select students.firstname, students.lastname, CNET 2030 assignment 1 from students, and there's another command in here, and again we'll get into a lot of this later on, but I have a new command in here called join. So instead of just putting a comma and saying the other table, what I'm telling it to do is actually join the students and the CNET 2030 table together. So MySQL will see these two tables as one big table and allow you to extract information out. But where I'm telling it to join, and keep in mind, I guess something I never talked about, when we displayed each of the tables, the user IDs were in numerical order, but not every table is going to be like that. Maybe 16 is at the top and 28 is down, in the middle, and 1 is 3/4 the way down. So those rows don't always align perfectly with other information from other tables. So if I put in here where students.id is equal to CNET 2030.id, so the student IDs numbers in both of them will be matched up perfectly, and it will join those lines together. So if I do that, basically what it does is it goes through and shows me nothing very spectacular here, but it goes through and shows me all that information. So if I was to add more users, maybe let's just do that really quickly. I'm going to add in an ID number of 17, which I believe is Lino's, and let's put him at 88, and 18 was Rob's. Rob's a bit of a brainiac, so let's put him at 98. And if I go back to this command, it comes up, so it's gone through all of the different tables, associated user ID names between the two of the tables, joined the two tables together, and then allowed me to extract information back out. So it shows me. So this allows me to say, okay, show me all of assignment 1, who got what in assignment 1, and it'll go through and give me that ability. So when we start building the group project, basically what's going to be happening, and I'm going to give more of a demonstration in class, is you will be doing something similar to this, but your queries will not be hand typed. Your PHP will actually send those queries to the server. It sends the query and then waits for the response back. So in this particular case, if I sent that select students.firstname that you see up on the screen, if I sent that query to the server with PHP, PHP waits and gets that response back, and will actually take this information that's presented here into an array, a variable array, which allows me to extract the information out and display on my page. So it's very much like that. I can go in, can create a web page that says, show me all of the final grades from assignment number 1, or the marked grades from assignment number 1, and hit execute. It goes and does all this and brings back this information that I have shown here. And by manipulating it in certain ways, you get to do all sorts of neat and wonderful things that can be stored. But you can actually see how complicated it can get. We're just gracing the surface of what a database can do, and how these tables interrelate and do all that. And you can see why database administrators are very highly sought after, because it controls the information, and information is the keystone these days of any business. So anybody who knows how to handle it and manipulate it and can present the data in a efficient and usable manner, very well sought after. So that's it for in this video on MySQL. I just wanted to kind of give you an overall introductory to it. It is on your servers right now. When you installed your LAMP or WAMP servers, the MySQL is there, so you have that capability of going on and even just trying a few of these commands and starting playing with it. And what we'll do is we'll spend a little bit more time on some of the relationships between the databases. There's some diagramming that we're going to be getting into, using ER diagrams and things like that, on how to plan a database out. I didn't do much of a plan when planning this database out, but you really should sit down and figure out the entire structure of your database before you even start to implement it. So we'll take a look at that and how each of the tables do associate with each other. So we'll do that as an in-class project. But if you still want to download these, the group project and the assignment 3, read through them, get a sense of what's going on, and we'll just pick up from there in class. So that's what I wanted to talk about today, just to go over. And if you have any questions or comments on the video, please just email them. I'll get back to you as soon as I can, and we'll hopefully we'll see you in the lab soon. Anyway, bye.